If you're currently living on planet Earth, especially in the United States, you may be aware that racial tensions have been boiling. Some people explain this away as a terrorist organization or a terrorist movement, or other people will say like, hey, this is like a bunch of angry people projecting at me. I did nothing wrong. Well, I think it's worth investigating like what racism is, especially in the context of our law of attraction. If you are experiencing discomfort at some of the racial tensions going on right now, there's a good chance that you may have aspects of emotion inside of you that ultimately manifest as racism. And so I would like to share my view on some of these underlying emotions that contribute to the ism that we experience as racism, okay? So let's go through this first, and then we'll go back and break down each part of it, okay? So my understanding is there's 4 main components to racism. You first have superiority, which is an inflated sense of self. That feeds into judgment. We talked about judgment in other videos and how it's non-loving because there's expectations involved in making judgments. Making determinations of behavior or lifestyle based on the intellect, comparing and contrasting what is currently known about a person or thing or whatever, you know. I mean, we're talking about racism here, so it's about a person, but you could theoretically apply these concepts to other isms if you allow yourself to explore that space. The judgment feeds into disgust, okay? Disgust is revulsion or strong disapproval of someone or something perceived as offending someone. And finally, it leads to anger. Anger is an addiction not being met. We've talked about anger in previous videos, and we've talked about the layers of emotions. And I'll make more videos detailing this, but for the time being, it's important to understand that anger is actually the manifestation of emotions because an addiction of yours is not being met. Now, let's go through this slowly, okay? Superiority. The key word here is inflated sense of self. We are conditioned to feel superior. Because, like, why wouldn't we be? Like, if I am a light-toned skinned person with dark brown hair and a long beard, I'm going to think that I'm the best. Of course, why wouldn't I be the best? It's me. I am me. This is who I am. I'm important. It's my life. This is my view of this place. You're all just living in my world. That's how many of us think. So if you think that way, which again, most of us are conditioned to think that way, then we're going to make judgments based upon the differences, or really perceived differences, of those that are not in our various groups or fittings. So like, you know, if a person is, all right, let's take religion for example, right? Let's say you belong to the Jewish faith. Well, people who belong to the Jewish faith believe that they are God's chosen people. They say this openly and outright. They're not ashamed of it. But really, if you think about it, it's quite an arrogant belief to think that like one group of people has been chosen by God. Doesn't really make sense. Now, of course, most religions actually feel this way, but I'll give credit to Judaism for actually saying what they feel. This is part of telling the truth all the time, you know? Some Christians believe that they are God's chosen people. Obviously they do. Why would they be in that religion if they didn't? You see what I'm saying? When we make judgments, we're relying on our intellect. Why is this a problem? It's a problem because our intellects are weak. Now, I talked about the intellect in a previous video, but I'll go over it again. The intellect is a mechanism of the spirit body that allows humans to compare and contrast known quantities. Okay? It is only through emotional work and releasing of grief and receiving God's love are you able to expand your emotional knowing, which in turn increases your intellectual ability to understand. So if you allow yourself to admit that your intellect currently is limited, and honestly will always be limited, it's limited, and that your perception is staked out in a limited perspective. You can only see some stuff. You can't see all the stuff, okay? So to share a personal example here, when I was a younger person, maybe like 12 or 13, I remember I was riding in the car with my Earth Father, and he made a racist comment. And I called him out on it. I said, "You're a racist." And he said to me, quite angrily I might add, "Oh, you just wait. You'll have your own experiences. And also, anytime a black person moves into a neighborhood full of white people, the property values decrease. It's facts, look it up." Okay, well, he's right in the sense that in the suburban area of Philadelphia where I grew up, that it tended to be the case that when a black family moved into a predominantly white neighborhood, that the property values would go down. Well, does that prove that black people lower the value of houses? No. I think it proves that white people are racist. Now, I'm using the terms black and white for simplicity purposes. Of course, they're completely made up concepts, but that is how oftentimes we view each other. Even the term race is, in my view, nonsensical. Like, why would we describe the color, the tone of our skin as a race? Like, in a race, there's only one winner. A race is a competition with one winner. I prefer the term tone. You know, I'm a lighter toned person. Does God believe that black people lower the property value of real estate? No. So that is a false belief. Now, it may be other humans' belief, but it is a false belief according to the Creator, because it is non-loving. The Creator loves all her children equally. Now, the ability for the children to receive that love is dependent upon each individual person working through their various emotions and developing a desire to connect with the Creator being. Let's continue. Disgust. So the judgment leads to disgust, okay? Revulsion or strong disapproval of someone or something perceived as offensive, unpleasant to someone. Perceived. That's the key word. Perceived. You are taking it in that way. Does that mean it's true? No, not necessarily. Again, how does our soul work? Our soul attracts events in order for us to get us to feel our emotions. So, like, let's take the example of a lighter toned family in a neighborhood who now has a darker toned neighbor. Well, if the two people or person that owns the lighter toned household feels that their house is now worth less, I encourage them to feel out their emotions about that, right? That's actually quite sad that like a group of people will actually actively stay away from an area because another group of people that look different than them chose to live in that neighborhood and had the ability and means to live in a particular neighborhood. Your soul-based errors are in there from your childhood and from even before you were born. If you're an adult, and you are attracting an event, those people did not put errors into your soul. They were already there. And you're attracting an event that they may be a part of in order to get you to release your suppressed emotions, fear, terror, grief, sadness. Okay? This leads to anger. Anger is an addiction not being met. So going back to my example of when I rightfully and truthfully called my Earth Father a racist. He got angry at me because I did not meet his addiction of being the perfect father or being what he would consider a good person or whatever. But really, I'm just telling the truth. So he did not want to admit to himself that he had racist tendencies inside of him because he did not want to feel his own suppressed emotions about that. See, he would rather lie to himself and say he's not racist, but then grab all these anecdotal personal experiences and cherry pick facts, so-called facts, that exist in a system that has been designed by people to, have certain outcomes. So if you want to look up redlining, it's not that hard. It's on the internet. You can learn all about how lawmakers created laws to keep various groups of people separate. That really happened. And to a degree still does happen. And it's not just through real estate. It's also through businesses and banking and all this kind of stuff. It's too much to get into right now. But anger is an addiction not being met. Now, people often suppress this anger and claim, I'm not angry. I'm not yelling, so I'm not angry. Right? Just because you're not yelling doesn't mean you're not angry. Just because you're not yelling doesn't mean you're not angry. Okay? We all have anger inside of us. A lot of anger. Okay? But if you're willing to challenge yourself in this way, and by the way, I have a personal story about challenging my own racist tendencies that I'll probably share in another video. It's quite intense. But again, I'm just trying to discuss the principles of how to recognize this inside of yourself. Okay? So you may self-observe and recognize one or more of these aspects inside yourself. That's a good thing. It's a good thing because then you're honest with yourself. Okay? And then you can talk to God about it. You can say, God, God, I do feel like I'm superior. But I don't want to feel superior. Maybe you'll attract events where you'll meet really cool people who have different skin tones than you and have excellent experiences with them. Maybe you'll make excellent friends. Maybe, hanging out with a person that doesn't fit your view of what is acceptable or not acceptable behavior, you might learn more about how they approach life, which might be totally different from how you approach life. Is that threatening to you? It's a common critique of the black community from people with lighter toned skin to say oh, they're lazy. Really? They're lazy? If they're so lazy, then why are most professional athletes black? You're definitely not lazy if you're an athlete. Maybe it's because their collective ancestral emotional history is tied up with slavery and being forced to do work. And maybe they don't want to do work. And you know what? I don't blame them. Because I don't really want to do work either. And there's things like free energy that exists, which I'll talk about in other videos, that could create that reality. But from, let's say, my dad's perspective, he doesn't even envision a situation where we live in paradise and no one has to work. So it's just easier to project anger at people that are not living their lives in the way that you feel that you're living your life. This is where humility comes in. Again, humility is the desire and willingness to own and feel all of your own emotions. If you practice humility, you'll be able to feel out your anger, challenge your addictions, feel out your fear, and reach your grief. When you release grief, and you involve the Creator in this process. You don't have to involve the Creator in this process, but if you do involve the Creator in this process, she will share her love with you, and you will know her truth. And you will come to understand that, again, human concepts, not created by God, that God loves all our children, and that actually, like, the tone of our skin is actually a result of the large, massive inbreeding programs that humans have undertook with each other willingly over a long stretch of time. So, before you go around thinking how great you are, ask yourself some of these questions, okay, and allow yourself to feel. Good luck. Love and peace.